Welcome to a new episode of Talking About Rules. Today's guest, Kelvin Martin, BWF and Badminton Panam Umpire Assessor.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome. This is our third presentation under the program that for technical officials. I'm very happy to see the attendance and the communication flowing between us. No, and in this opportunity, we have again Kelvin Martin assisting us and giving all his feedback information to us all. No, I hope also that everybody is in good health, keeping prevention, and each time getting closer to normal. But we have to be patient again. And nothing more to say. Please, Ricardo, Kelvin, thanks again for being with us and assisting. No, Ricardo, please, you get the floor.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you again this evening, and I hope that everybody and their families are doing fine during these trying times. All of us trying to cope with COVID-19. Okay, so as Ricardo says, we will be looking at possibly three areas this evening: vocabulary, the instructions, the umpires and service judges. Coming out of the last meeting, there were some questions about the scoring machine. So there's actually some instructions there which I believe would be useful for the TOs to get a feel of what the machine is. Okay, so let me try and bring up that document so we can get started. All right, so BWF statute section 4.1.5, which deals with vocabulary. And it's important also that when you're looking at these documents on the website, that you try to ensure that you're looking at the latest information. So see, this is dated the 19th of February 2020, because there are constant revisions and tweaks to these documents. Just like the ITTO, it tends to take you from the beginning of the match all the way through to the end. Right, so section 1, which is labeled before the match. You have some instructions here in how to deal with clothing. Let me check the clothing. And just to say, the reason why we have a vocabulary is, as you know, English is the official language of badminton. And there are players coming from all over the world speaking many different languages, and if there's a standard that everyone is supposed to be acquainted with, then it makes communication a little bit easier. Gerald will tell you that sometimes you might go on court and you find a player who understands not one word of English, but at least they know how to count and they can keep track of the score by looking at the display, which is a marvelous tool for umpires these days. There's big screens at the side of the court. Right, so item 1.1, let me check the clothing, because at the beginning of the match you need to check the players to ensure that any regulations which pertain to the particular event which you are at are being adhered to. And you then go to your name on the shirt is too big, and that would be in relation to measuring the name of the athlete on their clothing to ensure that it complies with the regulations. The name on the shirt is not the same as the name in the BWF database. The name of the player has to be what is in the database, because that's important. Your name is mandatory on the shirt. As we would have shared with you before, there are certain stipulations which you must adhere to depending on the event that you are officiating at. The member name on the shirt is too big. The member name on the shirt is too small, so you have maximum size and a minimum size, and in the case of the country, there's a mandatory size. Right? So you need to familiarize yourself with what those dimensions are, and be in a position with some apparatus to be able to measure. One of the useful ways we found to be able to measure sizes would be to use your cards. Maybe get your cards cut to a particular size so that if you turn it on the side, you may get 5. And then if you turn it vertical, then you may get 10. So that way you have, without the need to bring a physical measuring device, you have something that you can use to help you to get a gauge as to whether the sizes comply with the regulations. You have more adverts on your clothing than is allowed. Right? So at the international level, there are certain number of adverts that each player is allowed to have. And if you exceed that amount of 5, then that will find you having to be sanctioned and being reported. And then the referee would then take care of any sanctions that will come about as a result of having more than the allotted number of adverts. And as you would have pointed out before as well, there are certain countries which have special permission to have additional advertising on their shorts and on their dresses at the bottom. 111, the advert is too big. Again, one of the things which would be useful, there's actually a special measuring tool that is given to umpires at the international level. I don't know whether those are available and can be sourced by Pan Am, so that they might be able to make them available to the TOs, because it makes measuring of advertising a lot easier, because you have some graphics on the device which sort of allow you to see potentially what 2 square centimeters could work out to be, whether it's completely square or whether you have one side that's shorter than the others. The member association advert is not registered with BWF, which I just alluded to just now. So there's certain member associations which have that special permission to carry that special advert. You have more advert. You have more than one advert in the advertising band. So only one advertising is allowed in the band. You have visible adverts on the underclothing. As you would all be aware, no advertising is allowed on the underclothing. So sometimes we usually have fun in the assembly area trying to ask players whether they have any adverts on their underclothing. So sometimes it generates a little bit of laughter, and it helps to keep everybody relaxed. Sometimes when you share that little joke, asking them to confirm that they have no adverts on their underclothing. Your color clothing is not significantly different from the opponents. So again, the regulations call for significantly different clothing, and not only different clothing, but there are certain colors which are not good for television, like greens and so forth. And you could find a situation where umpire might want to get the opinion of the marshals who might be there to assist, or even go as far as to calling one of the referees to have a look to confirm whether the color is allowed and accepted. You must wear the same color clothing as your partner. Just to shed a little bit of light on that, you might have partners who have different sponsors, and different sponsors colors sometimes vary from sponsor to sponsor, so you might be a little bit unsure as to why two players still have slightly different colors, and that is allowed. You know, different sponsors have different colors, so just to make you aware of that. You must wear the same color clothing as your partner. Do you have any other color of clothing? So if there's a situation which arises where you have both players who might have similar colors, then you ask the lower ranked of the players or the teams to change their clothing. And you know, you do have sometimes some situations where a player might not have that clothing. So the additional color clothing can make the change. So you will make sure that you do your part by recording that information and reporting it to the referee, and then it becomes then a referee matter. Your color clothing is not significantly different from your opponents, which we touched on just now. And here again, you're supposed to ask them the question, do you have any other color of clothing? You have to change your color of clothing. If you do not change your shirt, you will be fined. So you are there to go through these series of questions to try to arrive at the right outcome where the player changes. And as I said, unfortunately, there are times when the players don't have that additional color to make the change, and they will then end up suffering the consequences of it. The lettering on the shirt must be in a contrasting color to the color of the shirt. So it's important to have that contrasting color because you need to be able to see the player's name from in the stands and also on television. So hence the reason to have a contrasting color so that it stands out. The lettering on the shirt must be in capital letters. And not only in capital letters, but also in the Roman alphabet, right? So again, these are the standards which are set in the rules of badminton, that the lettering must be in capital letters, and that the lettering must be in Roman alphabet. And the lettering sequence is wrong. There's a particular sequence in which the names which appear on the player's clothing has to go, which would be the player's name, and then the country, and then sponsor if there's a sponsor, and that's starting from the top going down. Taping is not allowed. Again, it's just making the point that taping is not allowed because previously.
Sorry, Kelvin. Sorry, Kelvin. We have a comment from Sinati. So Sinati, please feel free to comment.
I was saying on 1.1.19 where if you do not change your shirt, you will be fined.
Yes.
As an umpire, I do not issue the fine, and I do not have the authority to. But I will say that you will be fined. Like it's not a you may be fined, because it's up to BWF if they fine. I don't know if they sometimes maybe they don't fine, but is it that you will be fined? It's very assertive. It's kind of what my comment is. It's like, can we alter? Like I'm assuming BWF stances don't alter the vocabulary, but this is kind of uncomfortable for me to say that they will be fined. I don't know how you like to interpret this.
Yeah, well, I will tread very carefully on that because I must say that I'm not an expert on that myself, other than what we're doing here is just reviewing the language that you're supposed to be using. You know, so you're not there to determine whether the player will or will not be fined. You are just going with the mandate that you as the umpire have been given. You know, when an occurrence like this happens, what you want to be able to do is to just do what you are expected to do. So you need to notify the player that if they don't change, that according to this comment here, that you will be fined. But then ultimately, it will depend then on the referee and the organizers in the end, you know, to make that final determination. So you're just using the tools that you've been given on the court. So the tool that you've been given on the court is to say to them that you will be fined. Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Also, Trevor McCain has another comment about this. We can alter the vocabulary, but we, as Panam, could make a recommendation to modify the vocabulary for 1.1.19 to say that you may be fined.
Okay. Well, what I should say here is that the vocabulary that we are using here is meant to be a tool used by a BWF umpire. So certainly Panam, I believe, might be within their rights to have their own guidelines, right? But these guidelines are for BWF umpires. Yeah, so we were just about to touch on the last point there, 1.1.25, taping is not allowed. It's fairly emphatic what it says there, taping is not allowed. Previously, you know, when there was an issue, you were allowed to use some sort of adhesive tape to tape over whatever the offensive logo or lettering might have been, but that has now been completely ruled out. So as it says there, taping is not allowed. Some instances where you might see that happening, I witnessed it at the recent Commonwealth Games in Australia, where again you had players who had gear on from their sponsors, and they had on their sponsors logo, and in that particular event, you know, there were no sponsorship of that sort allowed. So they were attempting to actually take over their sponsors logo on their uniform so that they would comply with the Commonwealth Games regulations. So that's some situations where you get occurrences such as those. All right, so then we move on to 1.2, which is the toss. Come here for the toss. So, you know, players would have been milling around when they arrive at the court. So you want to be able to get your match going. So you instruct your players to come for the toss. And then you then instruct or indicate who has actually won the toss. So it's important not only for you as the umpire to know who has won the toss, but also for the audience, whether it be the audience, television audience, or the spectators in the venue. So you confirm who has won the toss, and then you continue along the lines to determine you know, what the choice would be. So what do you choose? And who will serve? Choose your end. Who will receive? All of these are important questions so that you can then record the correct information on your score sheet, or in the case of if you were using a scoring machine, then to be able to transcribe all of these important decisions into your scoring device so that you do not start with a problem. And then again, you are announcing to the players there what the result of the toss is. The opponents choose to receive first, so you will serve first. The opponents choose to serve first, so you will receive first. The opponents choose ends. You wish to serve or receive first. Section 1.3, switch off your mobile phone. Place your bag properly in the basket, ready to play. And that ready to play signifies to the players that it's time to end the warm-up, go to the baskets, get prepared, and be ready then to start the match. Start of the match, introduction and announcement. I wouldn't read through these because I think that everybody should be familiar now what the standard announcements would be for a singles tournament and for a doubles tournament, whether it be a team event. Section 3, during the match. In the interest of trying to save some time, I guess everyone can see the screen there. Service over, fault, let, out, interval, play let, change ends. Do not change, sorry, you did not change ends. Down to 3-1-1-4, service judge, signal please. So this could be a situation where the service judge.
Sorry, Kevin. Gerard raised his hand. So Gerard, please feel free to comment.
And thank you very much for your job here, Calvin. Thank you, Ricardo, for hosting this. I think it's very important. Now, the question was more for the first section where you were talking about clothing and all that. One thing that's not there that we are asked to check a lot, and you know this, Calvin, is also the underclothing very often that shows that they have like stretch shorts or something like that. And when there is advert on that, they try to put tape on this and modified it, or just sometimes they just want to flip it over. But we always say also, and I'm sure you know this, that if it reveals itself, then that's where you use that you could be fined or may be fined if that case happened. Also for compression socks with advert on it and all sorts of things like that, that is we have to keep an eye on also. That basically is what I had to say about the 1 point, the first clothing part there.
Yeah, thanks for reinforcing those areas there, Gerald. Thanks very much. Okay, so section 3, as I said, was during the match. One was generated some comments and some questions last week. You hit the shuttle on your opponent's side of the net. The shuttle touched you. You touched the net. All of these are points of fact, which could become, some issues sometimes when you see something one way, the player might not necessarily agree that these infractions have been committed. And again, to emphasize the point that we are now emphasizing is that you and the service judge are working as a team out there. And your service judge could help to reinforce to you, if you yourself might become doubtful as to whether an infraction has happened. Moving on to section 3.2, serving and receiving. Right service court, left service court. It might be a situation where the player might be unsure, which side they should be serving from. So this is where you will help them by giving them some direction as to where they might be serving or where they might be receiving. Do not serve before the receiver is ready. And again, this could be a situation where you'll be forced to call a let, because one party might not be ready. In particular, maybe the receiver might not be ready. But again, it's important then to, when you have to use a sentence such as do not serve before the receiver is ready, that you should alert the receiver that they need to be ready. You know, so don't just take it that they will then determine when they need to be ready. You are in control of the match, and you will determine whether they're taking too long to get ready to receive. Moving on to section 3.3, shuttle change. Is the shuttle okay? Change the shuttle. Do not change the shuttle. Change, no change, return the shuttle. You must ask me for permission to change the shuttle. You know, these sentences very often need to be used throughout the match, because there are lots of instances where a player might wander off to the service judge to get a change in shuttle without asking your permission. So you being the person in charge need to remind them that they need to seek your permission, and you need to make the determination whether you agree that the shuttle needs to be changed. To emphasize here, the change of the shuttle is totally at the discretion of the umpire, not the player. So the player doesn't determine if and when to change the shuttle. Now we'll just skip over the line call IRS because this wouldn't be necessarily the everyday relevant section.
Sorry, Kelvin. Sandeep has raised his hand. So Sandeep, yes, please.
Okay, so when Kelvin mentioned change shuttle or not change shuttle, how is the umpire to know which kind of shuttle needs change and which doesn't need a change? Could we see some examples of that, please?
All right. As the umpire in the chair, you would have been watching not only the players, but also watching the shuttle. So you might observe that, there's something, the flight of the shuttle seems not to be normal. So from that perspective, even without being close to the shuttle, you might be able to form in your mind that the shuttle is damaged, and you will allow it to be changed. Then there would be another situation where a player might actually think that they want to have the shuttle change. So you will ask them to show you the shuttle from a distance, because you don't want the player to waste time walking towards you to show you that there has been damage to the shuttle. And it's a good question, because to be honest with you, there are situations where you might not see that there's physical damage to the shuttle and might be flying perfectly as far as you're concerned, and your opinion might be, no, play on. But the player might be able to actually indicate to you, well, there's been some damage to the shuttle, and once there has been any damage to the shuttle at all, then it must be changed.
Could I follow up with that on that, please?
Sure.
So if a service judge actually sees that the feather is broken, and the feather is broken by the player, that shuttle needs to be changed. But how is the service judge going to tell the umpire that this shuttle was damaged by the player?
Right. Well, I think we having several things happen here. So is it a case where the player deliberately damaged the shuttle? Because then that's a totally different situation, because you now have the player now violating one of the laws, which is actually damaging the shuttle, and they could be forced to suffer the consequences for that. As to the communication between the service judge and the umpire, that's a good one, but it might be a situation where you might have worked with someone before, and you might at that point have eye contact with them, and they might be able to just give you a quick signal to indicate to you that something has happened, right? So this is why we are saying it's important to have that eye contact between the service judge as much as you can during the game.
Okay, also Gerard has some comments. Please, Gerard.
Yeah, you have to judge as an umpire also watching the flow of the game. Sometime a player just want to change shuttle. If both players want to change, then there's basically no issue. But if only one, you have to ask yourself, is this delaying the game, or is the shuttle really needs to change? So that's when you start to ask yourself that question. And it's really a judgment thing on your part. And if you feel that the player is trying to slow the game down or just influence the flow of the game, then you have to act on that. And otherwise, you make the decision by watching the shuttle fly, and you see how it flies and all that. And if there's been like, I don't know, 10, 20 huge attack on that shuttle, you know it's been hit like pretty hard. And depending also on the reception of that shuttle. And there's a bunch of different situations that would influence the condition of the feathers of the shuttle. So it's by looking at the game, staying on top of the game, watching it. That's how you judge if that shuttle need to be changed or not. It's really a question of judgment, and then it is your decision. Unless both teams wants to play with the same shuttle, then it's there. But as soon as there are one who wants to change and the other doesn't, then it becomes your decision for sure. And Calvin, are you okay with that?
Yeah, thanks for reinforcing that, Gerald.
Okay, thank you. So the last one question in this topic is from Max. Please, Max, feel free to participate.
Hi. Well, my question is about testing the shuttle. In what situation can you say that about the 3.3.8?
Test the shuttle.
Yes.
Okay. There would be a situation sometimes when both players might be complaining about the speed of the shuttle. Under normal circumstances, you're not going to allow a player to test the shuttle because the testing of the shuttle is usually done by the referee before the start of the sessions. So it could be a situation where both players are complaining, shuttle might be too fast, too slow, and you will then call the referee onto the court, and the referee in that instance might ask you to instruct a player to test the shuttle. So that would be under the only case where you'd be asking you'd be making that comment to the player to test the shuttle.
Yes, if ever you're going for evaluations at the higher level, those tournaments, shuttle have been tested. You don't test the shuttles, and it would be even a point against you if you let players test the shuttle without the permission of the referees. So be sure that if they're not happy with the shuttle, both players are not happy, change the shuttle. Just change it and keep playing. If they're still not happy, then you have to let the referee know about this, and they would come on and decide if they need to be tested or not.
Okay.
Mohammed, I think Mohammed has the last one. So let's hear Mohammed, and then we continue with the other topic.
Yeah, sorry, like just one, I want to add one point for this. Is like also when we need to change shuttle, just we try to change it. Like also sometimes we need to like take the decision fast and don't slow the match. Like we don't like try to slow the match. If you see the shuttle, you should make idea before the shuttle is coming to you. Sometimes just change it and don't slow the match.
Yeah, it's a good practice, but as I said, sometimes it could be a situation where you might think that it's not damaged, but there might be a little damage. So just to emphasize the point that once there's any damage at all to the shuttle, it must be changed.
Thanks, you.
You're welcome. All right, so section 3, 4.15 and 17 are again dealing with the IRS. Influencing TO, a very important area. You try to influence the service judge. You try to influence the lines judge. You must not influence the line judge. You must not influence the service judge. Right? So again, as we know, there's no situation where the players are going to be calling the lines. Sometimes it's a big transition for the players because coming from a situation where they might not have line judges, They might be accustomed call-in lines in their local events and regional events, but at the international level, under no circumstance will you allow a player to call where the shuttle has landed. And examples of, you might ask yourself, how could this happen? It could be a situation where a player actually celebrates. And when we say celebrate, as soon as the shuttle lands, the player might be going, yes, right, before the line judge has actually made the call. We call that influencing the line judge. And you will, as the umpire, need to stop that from happening, right? So you would notify the player. No, you don't make your gestures like that before the line judge has actually signaled, because it could be intimidating to the line judge, who might be forced or influenced to go with you to think that the shuttle has landed, whether it's in their favor, right? So that's an example of trying to influence the line judge. Section 3.6, coaching. Coaches, return to your chairs. And generally speaking, the advice to an umpire is that you are in charge of the players, not necessarily of the coaches. So under rare circumstance would actually you be issuing that instruction to the coach. Your first means of control would be to the players. So you would ask the players to come onto the court, and then after the players come onto the court and then the coaches are still there, then you will then be addressing the coaches. But generally speaking, your control and direction and instructions will be directed at the players. We have situations, just to give you an example, where at the end of the 40 seconds during maybe a 1 minute interval, you will have umpires shouting instructions to players and coaches. But the thing is that they still have 20 seconds within which they can actually get back onto the court. So it's not automatic that as the 40 seconds has expired, that you then start shouting instructions to the coaches to go to the chairs, right? Your coach distracted your opponent, and that's a case where a coach is distracting the opponent, and in that case, your instruction would be to call elect, and to ensure that coach is not distracting the players. And if you observe that happening, you're then within your right then to call the referee to the court to inform them that there's a problem with the coach, and it will be the referee's responsibility then to deal with the coach. 366, do not step over the airboard. Do not get up from your chair until the rally is over. Right? So again, in order to have a good presentation, you don't want to have a situation where the player nor the coach stepping over the airboard. And it has happened, and you will see it sometimes, that in an effort by the coach to get hurriedly to the player's side during the interval, that they might step over the airboard. So that's where that situation would generally occur. And again, you will deal with that by instructing them not to step over the airboard. Injury. And when there's an injury, very important to ask the question, are you okay? Because depending on the response that you get from the player, that is where you then start to take the necessary action, whether you start your stopwatch, you start to record the time, whether you raise your hand, then to call for the referee, then for the referee then to, determine whether you need to have the doctor. So it all starts with that very first question to the player: are you okay? And then depending on the response from the player, then that could then have then a chain of events that happen methodically after that initial question. Are you retiring? Again, it's important for the player for you to ask the player that question, and for the player to respond to you, because retiring during a match has consequences for your participation in the rest of the event. So it's very important in a situation where you have a player retiring that you are asking the question and making the correct determination, and also making the correct action after that happens. In the case of an injury, you would advise the player you can have spray from the doctor only once in a match. There are situations where maybe during the interval where the player might still need to have some attention, and they might have their own spray in their bags, and at that point we would then allow them to maybe administer the spray to themselves. There are situations sometimes where the important thing here is that the match must not be delayed.
Okay, Kelvin, we have some input from Sandeep. Please, Sandeep.
Okay, thank you, Ricardo. If a player needs medical attention before the start of the match, let's say a spray, will that be considered as already used situation or no?
Oh, that's an interesting one for me. I could probably ask Cheryl to help me out here, because you're saying this is before the start of the match, so the match hasn't actually started. So
for me, Kelvin, in this situation, whenever there's a spray need by the doctor, you know that if the doctor is there, the referee's there also, right? So I would ask the referee right there and then, would this count as is a spray of the match? I would ask the referee. That way, as you know, Sandeep, and those of you that seen me in sessions before that I gave you guys, as soon as the referee's there and you have the question, then it's the referee's responsibility now. So if they say no, then you're off the hook. You still have one. And if they say yes, then you have to let the player know that was his spray.
Thanks for those comments, Jared. Okay, Martin, those instructions, they're fairly straightforward, because we are 7:52 already in terms of time. Continuous play. These are important instructions which help to keep the match going and avoid delay. So on court, and that will happen, as I mentioned earlier, where the interval has come to an end, you're watching the time that's lapsing, and you don't want to wait until the player has actually used up all the time, then to exercise your right now to fault the player. You use all the tools that you have in your arsenal to try to ensure that the game is conducted in a non-officious way. So this is at that point where you can say to the player, on court. Right, so don't wait until there's an infraction. If you can avoid it and keep play going, you can use that instruction to tell them to come on court. And it could be a situation where they might be taking long after you allow them to have maybe a towel or a drink. So you would get them back on the court by using that on court. No delay. Play on, play now. So the play on, play now is supposed to be a build up to you get into the stage where you might be forced to take action in relation to misconduct on the part of a player. So the play is supposed to be the very first instruction, and then the play now would have been at the point where they have now exhausted all of your patience and getting to the stage where they're now delaying the game and also refusing to obey your instructions. So play now will then be seen as sort of the ultimate instruction now. So if you now continue to do what you're doing after I say play now, then I think it's now the point at time where you now need to take some action.
Okay, Kelvin, we have some inputs from Leonardo Mendoza and also Sandeep. Please, Leonardo, feel free.
Hello, Kelvin. I just want to ask you from 3.8 to show where to wipe the court. We're not supposed to show anymore where to be clean or to be mopped. It's the players who are in charge to show the moppers, the attendants, where to clean the court.
Yes, that instruction there show where to wipe the court. So what you're saying there, the person that you are addressing there is the player, right? So you are telling the player to show the attendant where to mop, because the service judge and the umpire wouldn't be pointing at the spot. And as Gerald says, sometimes these things happen where players might want a little rest, and they might use that as an opportunity to sort of delay the game. So that is one of the little tools that you have. That you hear us talking about umpires having tools. That's one of the tools that the umpires have to keep the game flowing. So you say to the player, show where to wipe the court. And what that does, it stops the player from wandering off to go to the basket, to break the momentum, the flow, to delay. So you use what you have in your arsenal to control them. So that instruction is you saying to the player, show where to wipe the court, right? And that's them showing the attendant where to wipe the court.
So what Kelvin, you're mentioning is play on, play now is a stepwise escalation.
Yes.
How do we decide as an umpire that this is the play situation and this is the play on situation? And this is going beyond. So now you must play must be continuous. And the next step is the caution, yellow card situation. So how are we doing this step up business?
Well, we have a saying for technical officials where we say that you must feel the game. You must be aware of what's happening. And one of your roles as an umpire is not to wait until something happens, but actually to anticipate that something will happen and to be able to stop it from happening if you can, right? And invariably, being aware of what's happening and having a feel for the game, you will know when you need to use the language of play on, and play now, right? Because you are aware of exactly what's happening with a player. And it could be a situation maybe where there might have been a call that the player doesn't agree with, so they want now to delay the game, do a little sobering, sulking about the result not going their way. And here's a typical example of where you will say to them play. They may hesitate a bit, and then you say play on, and then you say to them, okay, well, this will be your last opportunity before, as you said, I'm forced now to either give you a warning of some sort. And if you get to the stage where you have to say to the player those three instructions, play on, play now, I think the next logical stage would be to actually use a card.
On that point, you're absolutely right, Calvin. It's the flow of the game. It comes with, of course, a little bit of experience on the court. You heard me, Sandeep, also, and you guys, you heard me before. Badminton players on the court, it's like it feels like a dance. If they're both dancing the same dance, then the flow is going well. you know, it's a nice tango, whatever. And when suddenly one player suddenly either fell or fall behind in the score, had 2-3 bad shots, and now he's trying to slow the game down. You know, he's trying to change the momentum in his favor. So it's a question of feeling, and then that's where those language come in very handy.
Okay, Mohammed, you have.
Sorry, I want to go back just for the point for sweep the court. Just I want to make sure with Calvin, like as service judge, if you are like service judge, and also you can help sometimes to show the spot where they have the sweat on the floor or is wet for like don't delay the match sometimes.
Yeah, well, we have been instructed to say to the POs, you know, don't be seen there pointing use the players. Tell the player, show the attendant where to wait, right? So you try to stay out of it as much as you can, and that the player show and do the pointing. So you as the PO, no, we don't encourage you to be pointing out where the wet spots on the court.
Because I said this because sometimes, you know, the players sometimes they're like playing, sometimes they don't show the right plays just to like try to get some minutes to take a break.
Although Mohammed, sometime you're right. I agree a little bit with you, but if you go up and the RTTO are saying this is what you have to do, and this is what the language they want. This is what assessors want you to do. They want you to use, and certainly as a service judge, you would never stand up to point a spot or anything like that. It's the umpire's job. Sometimes you can do a little, you know, signal or something like that with your umpire, but as far as guiding the floor attendant to where it should go, I agree with Kelvin on this one. You have to use the tool that BWF and the RTTOs are giving you.
Thank you.
All right, so continuing along.
Sorry, Kelvin, I think we have the last input from Sandeep in this topic. Sandeep?
Thank you again, Ricardo. Actually, my question was to follow up before for the play-on situation, but I want to do a little bit with Mohammed and what Gerald just mentioned, that the service judge can help out. Now, there was a time at the Canada Open, and Mohammed was part of it. The umpire asked the service judge to see where the spots were on the court. Now, is that according to the RTTOs?
No, the recommendation is that you know, you are not to be directing the court attendant where to do the mopping. But you know, essentially, Gerald and my role here is to try to share the information as it is written in relation to the laws and recommendations. But there would be maybe some local situations which you might have to deal with differently. But what we're trying to do is to prepare you in the event that you are on the international stage. This is what is expected.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Kelvin. And at the same time, if the umpire is asking the service judge to stand up, then it's not the service judge's fault anymore. It's the umpire who will have to answer to the reason why he made the service judge stand, you know. But as far as you taking the initiative as a service judge, no.
That I see, Gerald. I mean, that is good. Now, the last question I have for both of you is, how many times have you actually had to escalate this play on, play now situation which led to a yellow card? So the question is to both of you guys. I mean, you could.
Well, Well, for me personally, I've never had the situation because, one of the important things that we're trying to share with you is that you are in charge. And if you do not allow a situation to escalate to the point where you have to use firm language like this, or then, use your cards, you have to, as the head assessor like to say, you have to feel the game. You have to anticipate. Well, that player didn't like that line call, so let me calm them down quickly. Feel the game. So
So Kelvin, you never shown a yellow card to any player then?
I'm trying to remember. Well, I think I showed a red card to one Peruvian player many years ago.
So only one red card in all these years. My gosh.
I've gave a few cards along the years, but for delay of game, I've never gave a delay of game card yet. There's always a first for everything, and sometime the first time for something is happening at the highest level of play, and that is not always nice. You want to have a few practice before that. I'm not saying that you have to go out now and give cards. That's not at all what I'm saying. What I've done, though, as far as the continuous play is ask for play. I did say play on. And when I'm at play now, I call the player and I tell them a friendly warning that you are delaying. Next time I have to talk to you, and for this situation, you will be card. And then I finish by saying play now. That's how I deal it. And of course, after a long rally in a third game, you don't expect, you have to feel this game. If they're both exhausted, and even if it's not a real tough rally in a third game in a long match, it's not going to be the same speed as in the first game. You start from a very quick dance to a slower dance. But still, if both players are there and pushing forward, and you are pushing a little bit also, it's the flow of the game. The crowd is happy. If the crowd is happy and the player are happy, everything is good.
Okay, so again, continuing. No further questions, right?
Sorry, maybe Calvin, I don't know if you agree or no. If you see, and Gerald, maybe. If you see the players, any one of them is taking advantage from the game, so it will be okay as soon as the game is going on.
Sorry, when you say taking advantage, not sure what you mean there.
It's like, I mean, even like they taking some few seconds more, especially like Gerald said in the third game, for example, or maybe at the end of the second game. If both of them is taking like little bit, like few seconds more, and anyone's taking advantage. For example, the server is not ready, the receiver is not ready, so not for sure is not for long. But if they taking a few more seconds of anyone taking advantage, so it's okay. In my opinion.
Just to analyze your comment there a bit, when you say taking a few seconds, yes, a few seconds would be allowed because a classic situation would be at the end of the interval between games, and the player walks on to court, and it is now 2 minutes, 2 seconds. You don't whip out your red card and say, okay, well, you're giving them a red card for delay. So as you said, the critical comment there was a few seconds, and a few meaning 2. That's fine, right? But importantly, if it is a case where one player is doing it, you deal with that one player. And if it's a case where both players are doing it, you deal with both players, right? Because the last thing you want to do is to lose control of the match. You are in control of the match, right? So you don't want to entertain any delays at all. And as Gerald said, it's a crescendo. You build up before you actually take out the heavy hammer and use it because it's in your arsenal. Okay. So on that section 3.9 continuous play, play must be continuous. Players back on court. Name of the player back on court. Get ready quicker. Quick towel only, quick drink only. two important ones there, the quick towel only. So as you all know, the rules allow for a player to go quickly to his basket and dry sweat, sweaty palms, sweaty grip. So again, in an effort to appear as though you're in control, although the player is allowed to do that, when you see them making that move, you would normally assist them by letting them know it's a quick towel only. Quick towel only, right? Because there was a question asked of me after the session last week. You know, what happens then if the player starts to drink? You remind them quick towel only, because that's what I permit you to do. A quick towel only, right? And then it could be a situation where it might be a very long rally. Both players, might need to not only wipe the sweaty palms, but also to have a drink, and you will remind them to have a quick drink, right? Because the whole emphasis here is that you don't want to delay the game, right? So you want to, one of the major emphasis on the international stage now is delay of game. And, we as assessors sit at the court side, and as soon as the shuttle hits the ground, we start our stopwatches. And, we are timing to see them having hit the floor, how quickly it is then served to start the next service and rally, right? So delay of game is very important, right? So, you are in control and you're telling the player quick towel only or quick drink only, giving them instructions that they understand. So, if you say to the player quick towel only, you wouldn't expect them to pick up the bottle to start the game.
Okay, Kelvin, we have some input from Sandeep.
Thanks again, Ricardo. This is just about going back to how do you get the feel of the game. Let's consider men's singles. You got players who are actually slow right from the beginning. So there is no reason to go to the second, third game post-interval to figure out, oh, they're taking a long time. They're already taking a long time from the beginning.
Then you have to react from the beginning.
Yeah.
But if both the players are doing the same, then you are allowing one player to go around and the other player to go around, so it's equal to both, right?
No, again, as I had mentioned before, if it's one player that's in violation, you deal with that one player. If both players are in violation, you deal with them. So, as I said, it's the beginning of the game, so you can't feel it because it's now starting. So you will determine what standards you will set and what you will be prepared to accept during the game. So, historically, yes, there are players who are slow. And you will then find umpires acting early and saying to them, from the first, what they consider to be not the standard that they expect. Call them to the chair. Tell them what you expect. No delay. Because delay will have consequences. Misconduct. So again, you don't want to administer misconduct with the players standing at the back of the court. So you tell them to come here, where they will get your full attention, and they'll be able to hear what you're saying to them. So you need to get them to come to you so that you can then take whatever action you're about to take. Do not raise your fist towards your opponents. This is something that sometimes happens quite quaintly, and usually it is a situation where it happens at the end of a rally and when players are close to the net. So, a player could raise his fist at the back of the court, pointing towards the spectators. Or should I say, pointing in the direction of the spectators, and that's permissible. But you would not permit that if the player was now standing at the net and pointing towards his opponent. That would definitely be a violation. So as soon as you see that happening, you call the player, and you will. There are certain gestures that you can show them, a clenched fist to indicate to them no, that you're not prepared to accept them celebrating in that way, because most of the time it's usually a form of celebration, but no celebrating in that manner, and not only celebrating in the form of a fist, but also celebrating in the form of shouting, right? We look very carefully to see the position of a player when they're shouting. So if it's a case of you just won a rally, and I'm looking over and staring at Gerald, and I let out a excruciating scream, that's not allowed, because, I am shouting through Gerald. And, you get situations where a player might say, well, I'm shouting towards my fans who are behind Gerald. That's not accepted, not acceptable at all. So any shouting that you're going to be doing, you're going to be turning away from your opponent, facing towards the side, facing to the back of the court. The minute the direction of your screaming and shouting and fisting is towards your opponent, or the direction of your opponent, then it becomes an offense. It seems I've gotten ahead of myself there now, because 310.3 says do not shout at your opponent. You must use your best effort. I think the only instance of this I'm aware of might have been many years ago at the Olympics, but generally speaking, I've never had the opportunity to have to say to a player to use their best efforts, because invariably, they're there to use their best effort to win, to move on to the next stage. You must shake hands before celebrating, and again, a lot of the players are aware of these regulations, but you do sometimes get a situation where, in the exuberance of having won, the player goes towards his coach, shakes hand with the coach. What we want to advise you to do now is to say, you've now violated the player's code of conduct, where you've gone and shake hand with your coach before shaking your opponent's hand, and you pull out your red card and you card them. No. You will have an opportunity at the wind up of the match, where the player comes to you to shake hands. You take that opportunity to then, say to the player, you remind them that they're supposed to shake the opponent's hand before they go to shake the hand of the coach. So again, there are lots of tools that you have, and we're encouraging you to use them. Explanation for service faults. As you're aware now, that when the service judge calls the fault, the umpire is then expected to explain to the players, to the spectators, to those watching by television, if that's the medium being used, what the fault is. Service fault call, too high. Service fault call, shaft. Service fault call, foot. And you might ask, why are we saying service fault shaft? And right now we have two systems of laws that might be used depending on the level of the tournament, because certain levels of tournaments you must use the measuring device, and in a situation where the device is being used, then the shaft law is suspended for that particular situation, right? So service fault called shaft will still be relevant if it's a level of tournament that's being played where they're not using the measuring device.
Okay, Sandeep, please.
Yeah, thanks again, Ricardo. So there is a nice examples of videos on the BWF website about almost all of these faults. And that's a good place to start if you want to see what is being demonstrated that this is the shaft and this is the height and all that. So BWF website has got the video clips, and I can send out the link to see where exactly the videos are. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that information, Sandy. All right. Service fault call, undue delay. Service fault call, flight. I think this is Veronica's favorite question. So again, as I had mentioned when we were looking at the IPTOs, it's not really the intention for the service judge to be signaling that the shuttle then go over the net at service and then for the umpire to say flight. So as I also mentioned that these regulations are constantly being reviewed, right? So the emphasis here is that it's not intentional for you to be calling flight every time the shuttle fails to go over the net. Service fault call, miss shuttle, sorry, shuttle missed. Service fault call, receiver fault call, player left. Fault receiver, foot, fault server, foot, fault receiver, undue delay, fault server, undue delay.
Sorry, Kelvin. Veronica has a question. Please, Veronica.
Okay, hi everyone. So when I am the service judge, I see that I have to call a fault when the server misses the shuttle. So I call a fault, and what happens if I am the umpire, and I know the service judge is not going to say anything about that, to say that he missed the shuttle. I can see on my rear corner that he missed the shuttle, and but it is the duty of the service judge to call that. Is that correct?
Yes, because you as the umpire, you are watching both players, but predominantly you're watching the receiver. Right? But you would be aware of if the shuttle, if the server fails to make contact with the shuttle.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So Calvin, I think your answer, can you repeat your answer? Because I think it wasn't clear if it is, who is calling that fault, the umpire or the service judge?
Well, the service judge would be the person calling the service fault. Then the explanation coming then from the umpire.
What would be the sign of the service judge?
You're putting me on the spot there, Gerald. I'd have to go back and look at the...
I don't know. That's why I asked. Now, I would use, to be honest with you, I would use the continuous motion one, because it would be, you know, he missed. There's no other option there that would fit that situation, according to me.
Yeah, I would have to go back and review the ITTOs there and see whether there is a specific recommendation in relation to that.
Unless Mohamed has the answer.
Yeah, exactly. It's a continuous motion, and it happened once in one of competition which I take part of. And also,
So,
I want, yeah.
I guess right. Woohoo!
Yeah, it's good. And
it never happened. It never happened to me. So.
Yeah. And I want to follow also, like as umpire, even like the service judge, he miss fault. As umpire, we can call service fault too. Like example, like if the player. Yes. The server maybe step on the line and is like in your side. For example, is in like left side of player. Like maybe service judge, he don't saw it, but as umpire, if I saw it, I can call it as service fault.
Yes, because you, as the umpire, you can call the fault.
Sandeep, please.
Thank you, Ricardo. Thank you for giving me the chance again. I just want to say that it's only 3 or 4 people who are asking questions, and that is why I don't want to keep on asking. I want other people to ask questions. If they don't ask questions, then I want to come and learn with you guys, because you guys know everything. Thank you.
That's a tough one to wear there, Calvin.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, Sandeep, I think they might be shy like me and want to know the answers, but I'm afraid to ask the questions. All right, so section 5, explanations for warnings or faults, racket abuse. And again, the only way you'd be able to know whether to declare.
Sorry, Kelvin. Beth have some questions, please, Beth.
Thank you. Going back on the service fault with flight, does that also pertain to the situation when the flight of the shuttle does not proceed in upward direction over the net?
Yes, because invariably, if it doesn't proceed upwards, then it will end up striking the net and remaining on the service side.
Yeah, and in that case, it does seem a little bit ambiguous to then say continuous motion or something. But anyway, I don't know.
I think Gerald put his hand up, so I think Gerald is going to help us out with this one.
Well, no. The point I want to make was with flight, with the new height control, you will never use that, okay? Because the flight, because of where it has to be hit, it's hit too high if it's not going upward. That's a guarantee, okay? Because the stick is here and the net is there, so it has to go up, okay? And the only way or time you would use that would be with a very, 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 very tall player without using the measuring device there. That's where I would use that flight service fault.
Yes. Well, yeah, when you're not using the measuring device, that's a potential call. Not that I've ever done it, but.
Yeah. Yeah, well, just to, I don't want to bring any tales out of school, but you wouldn't rest assured that you will see that disappear very soon.
Rest assured, I didn't hear you, Kevin.
You will see the reference to flight being revised in the ITPS. Okay, so I was talking about racket abuse. So again, the only way you would know what constitutes racket abuse is if you have a look at the player's code of conduct and see what the players, where the boundaries are that the players might overstep. You threw the racket dangerously, verbal abuse. You use unacceptable language. You shouted at your opponent. You raise your fist in the direction of your opponent, which we talked about before. You try to influence the service judge. 511, physical abuse, equipment abuse. Equipment abuse, that could be a case where a player bangs his racket onto the board, onto umpire's chair, onto the net, the post, right? So there are all sorts of things that could be construed there.
Sorry, Kelvin, we have some input from Brian. Brian, please.
What is the difference between verbal abuse and you used unacceptable language?
Trying to see how best I can answer that. You might probably construe that there might be one on the same.
Verbal abuse would be when you say something, and I would view it like this. It's when you say something to someone, which is you're abusing that person verbally. Compared to you use unacceptable language is when you swore, just shout a swear, not to someone, but
okay, yeah.
That's how I would see it. If you want to find a difference between both.
Yeah, I agree with Jared.
Okay, yeah. Now I understand. Thank you.
Right, so again, We were talking about some of the abuse there. You kick the airboard, you hit the net, you hit the chair, you hit the equipment box, you hit the service measuring device delay. You delay the service. You refuse to follow my instructions. The WF 521. You refuse to play. You refuse to play on. You left the court without permission.
Sorry, Kelvin, we have some input from Max and Sandeep. Please, Max, feel free.
Thank you, Ricardo. About explanation for warnings and fault. This is in case if the player asks me why, or I have to say it when I raise my hand with a card.
Well, in both instances, it could be a situation where you are explaining to the player because the player needs to know why they are being sanctioned, and so you give them that explanation, right? And again, it could be a situation of clarifying for spectators and for spectators in the hall of spectators, what the situation has transpired, because before there was a practice of when something happened on the court, you would cover your microphone so that the viewers don't hear what's happening. But to a certain extent now, you're being told whatever you say can be said for everyone to hear. So again, you're making it clear to the player what it is that you are telling them the infraction that they have committed is.
So, sorry. So even I using a microphone or not, I have to say, for example, warning for misconduct. You kick the airboard, something like that.
Yes, because again, they might not be aware of what it is that you are telling them about.
You when you raise your card, though, Max, when you raise your card, you just say warning for misconduct. That's what you say. If the player comes to you and then asks you what he's done wrong, that's when you use the other language as an explanation to the player. But when you raise your arm to shoot a card, it's just
saying warning for or fault.
Warning
or fault.
Yeah, for misconduct. That's it.
Yeah, that was the direction of my question. Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay, we have Sandeep and then Beth. So please, Sandeep.
I see both umpires. I mean, Gerald and Kelvin have glasses, so they've been wearing glasses during the match on the court, and the player says, "Clean your glasses, umpire." Is that verbal abuse or not?
Sandeep, I guess it depends on how the player says it to you. I mean, they might say it in a joking manner, and they might have a smile on their face, or they might say it to you and have a stern look on their face. So again, feeling the situation. So you have to make that determination whether it's meant to be a compliment or whether it's meant
Nobody's going to compliment. Clean your glasses is not a compliment, is it?
Hmm? Well, it might be a compliment, So as I said, there's no one answer that if a player says to you, clean your glasses, it depends how it's said. I understand what you're saying. They might be saying to you, that you might not be seeing well. You take offense to it, But as you say, feel the moment. So don't go off the rocker then and pull out your red card and card them.
But then if I take offense, that means it was offensive to me. So then I show a red card or yellow card, whichever. Then the assessor says, "Oh no, you should have handled it different."
Well, the assessor just told you how to handle it about 3 seconds ago, Sandeep. And where do you want to go on the match? Where do you want that match to go? If a player tells that to me, like Calvin says, and I would say, thank you very much, play. You have to where do you want to go with this? Do you want this to be a confrontational match, or do you want the match to be played on? You know, there's a constant decisions to be made, and you have to play sometime with that. I had player that did something to me, and I responded in a way that they did not expect, and then you know, it's a question of you don't want things to escalate. Is that the word, Kelvin? Escalate?
Yes,
Escalate.
Yes, escalate.
You don't want things to escalate. And I can tell you that assessors don't want that. BWF doesn't want that. So it's a question you have to, and there's no right or wrong answer because you're on the court and you have to decide, but you have to be ready to prove or to support your decision though. Mohamed?
Yeah, just maybe just for fun for this, after then my question. Yeah, just maybe if he asks you to clean your glasses, ask him, do you have napkin with you? So.
and
I borrow your shirt.
Yeah.
That could be a perfect answer to, you know, to keep the game still, you know, going, you know, in an harmonious way, you know, so it doesn't escalate, as Gerald said, you know.
Just now for my question now, for explanation for the warning, which I learned, which they ask us to do it in some tournaments, like is exactly, you show the yellow card, warning for misconduct, but you should follow but the explanation of the fault. Like, except that you threw stuff, you use this, you use that, maybe that for explain the players, but for audience, you need to explain, like, so warning for misconduct, racket abuse, warning of conduct, verbal abuse, warning for conduct, shuttle abuse or other stuff. But except that, other is exactly is for players, but I think we need to explain what's the misconduct is going on.
Yes.
Okay, Beth also have some comments about this topic, this point.
Basically, I was just going to say that the explanations that are just two-word abuse things, those are for the announcement with the card, and the ones that start with you are what you do to tell the player what the story was.
Thank you for that, Pat. Okay. Conclusion of the match, again, most of us should be familiar with what's there, so I don't think we need to spend any time there. We have the various letters that signify what the occurrences are that you're recording, whether it be on your scorepad or on your score sheet. The explanations there for situations regarding clothing, pronunciation of the letters. All right, that's it there as far as the vocabulary is concerned. We were hoping to take a look at the other area, but I see we have now gone beyond our time, so I guess we probably would take that in the next session. Any other questions generally?
Okay, we have Sandeep.
I would have guessed Sandeep would have had a question.
I've got lots of questions, guys. I mean, come on. This is just a start. What I'm seeing over here is that you want umpires to make decisions. You want umpires to present the match so that everybody enjoys. What is the key to do this is what we are discussing now. How to manage the game, how to manage the flow, how to manage the players, how to present everything, how to stop discontinuous play, how to stop all the tactics. So we are doing all that, and that's the vocabulary to use. When are we going to see the examples or talk about this is where you say this is how we decide that this is now going towards more and more delay. This is where the player is using mopping and sweat tactics. So when are we going to learn that one? How are we going to collect information so that we make decisions which will help the match go smoothly? So that's what I would like to know. Thank you.
Interesting question. Ricardo had mentioned at the beginning of the session, there's certain things that we're not permitted to view in terms of video footage, which might then clearly demonstrate some of the areas that you are mentioning there. So, it might very well be a case of maybe some quiet discussion with Gerald when you see him at the tournament, and he can then share some of his experiences with you and, share experiences with other colleagues. But as it is right now, we're not able to pull up video footage and say to you, well, this is a situation where player was now beginning to delay, or, this is a situation where, because nowhere would we say to you that you must use a card. You have to determine whether you think that the use of the card will harm the situation that's happening right now, or whether it will actually escalate the situation. So again, don't want to keep repeating myself, but you keep repeating, feel the game. And one of the important comments as well is that the game is for the players, so you're not there to draw attention to yourself to say, well, I am the umpire here and I am in charge. You can exercise your authority, but in a subtle way.
There's you have to do to answer that, in my view, Sandip, is to do as many tournament and as many match as you can. It's to watch also as many match as you can. And when I go in a tournament, when it's not my time to umpire, I watch the game. There's things that certain umpires do that I want to replicate. I like the way they handle this. I like the way this person, I don't want to do it like that. This is what I really want to be or do. So the more you do, the more you watch and adapt and take the trade of someone else that you see that's doing something that you like and shape it to your feel of the game, and the more you do, and the more you can get this attitude on court, or this, not attitude, it's more like being on court.
I understand that part, Gerald, and that is good of you to answer. What I'm trying to get at is there are so many decisions an umpire makes on the court during a match. How many decisions, if I ask you how many decisions generally an umpire makes in a full match of 3 games, full count, 21.
Sandip, I'm going to cut you right there because I know you like numbers. You count and add things like an accountant for everything. The number of shuttles, the number of hit, the number of time, how many steps to the chair, how many steps up the chair. You count everything, Sandip, and I'm way not an accountant. Okay?
I agree.
I'm a guy of feeling. I feel the game. I feel the situation. And you want me to give you numbers, and I wouldn't know if you you make decisions from the time you wake up, and even before you wake up, you make the decision of waking up or not. so there's too many variable there, and not one game is the same, and I cannot give you an average of decisions I make on the court.
I understand that part, Gerald. What I'm trying to get at is there are so many decisions an umpire makes. How are we arriving at the decision? What are the considerations we have to make a decision is what we are trying to get at.
Standard generally speaking, and that's why, as I mentioned on the first day, the BWF has prepared all these various bits and pieces of information, which are the various bits of tools that try to help to give you some ideas as to how to officiate the match, right? There, as Jeff said, there are things that you learn on the job. You know, there's some things that you know, somebody can't teach you, that you learn by doing. You know, so experience counts, and that's why it's important, and that's why all of the various organizations require you to be active. And you know, there are levels to which we measure activity and inactivity, and it's important. You know, it's important to be active and to be there. And there's also an unwritten law which we refer to a lot, and it's called common sense.
Yeah, that's law 18. I know that.
You know, common sense. You know, and you know that takes care of a lot of situations. You know.
Please, Veronica.
Thank you. I just wanted to comment to Sandeep regarding the delay. When I am in a tournament that is very hot, I know that players are going to be sweating, so I ask them in advance to have their towel ready, and I know that the court assistant is going to have to come on court to do cleaning a lot. But if it's a different tournament, that it's not too humid, and one player is sweating and the other one is not, then I am going to take special care of the player that is sweating to be sure that he will not have an accident if the court is not properly cleaned. And then if the other player is not sweating, but is asking for time to clean or to use a towel or to clean the court, then I'm going to take extra special attention to him because I know he is making time. And usually they do it when they lose a point. And then they want to come to the boxes to drink water or to do whatever, and then to break the rhythm of the game. So maybe that would be one part where I am aware that something is happening with one specific player. And maybe in the interval, I will tell this player, you have to be ready to, if you want to clean the sweat, you have to be ready to use your towel. And then I notice that they open their bags and they do not have a towel. Then what can we do? You are not going to be cleaning up because you have no sweat at all. So then he comes and asks me, can I clean up the sweat? Or can I use a towel? No, keep playing because I know you just missed the point and you want to breathe. And right now the opponent is breathing and making points. And so we are not going to break the rhythm of this game. That's my opinion on that specific area.
Okay, Trevor, you have a comment?
Yes, I have. Two quick comments. The first one, there was a comment earlier about speed of shuttle. You know, when can they test the shuttle, etc. As a referee, my comment is that anything that the players request that will change the playing conditions, the referee has to be involved. So for example, anything to do with the speed of the shuttle, the lighting in the room, the service tool, the height of that or not, the net height, anything to do with the mats, anything that involves the playing conditions, the referee has to be involved. So that's one comment. The second comment, Kelvin and Gerald, maybe you could comment further on this. But this has to do with protecting the line judges in particular, and sometimes the service judge. Now, a lot of players intimidate the line judges. You know, sometimes the line judge makes a call and they go over and they have a good long look at the line judge, you know, or make a comment and, you know, you spoke about glasses and things like that. Now, it is absolutely unacceptable to try to influence the line judges. And I can tell you, I have spoken to line judges in tournaments and they do get very intimidated. They do get scared. And it affects how they operate and the fairness in which the calls are made. So as a referee, the first time a player does something like that near a line judge or, you know, tries to contests a line call, I would expect the umpire to call that player over and say to them, you must not attempt to influence the line judge. So maybe you could comment some more, Gerald and Kelvin.
Yeah, you're perfectly correct there, Trevor. From the very first instance, you want to make sure that you have control over that, and you might even be able to preempt it by observing that the player is going to be moving towards the service judge or the line judge, and you immediately call them, come here. You know, so don't wait for them to actually go and commit the offense. If it is within your power, deal with it firmly, but we were saying not officiously, you know, but firmly, but not officiously, right? Because again, you're not going to commit that at all, right? Not at all. Gerald, I don't know if you want to add anything there.
No, it's important to establish a good relation with your line judges so they feel comfortable. Also, I like to make some sort of contact before every match with the line judge I'm going on, especially at the beginning of the tournament. So you establish a good relation with all your line judges. And I often chat also with my line judges after a match, so just to reinforce the good job they've done, and or if they they got overruled by me, and or even by the instant review IRS. So in both cases, I would talk with them and reassure them, after the match. And that relation helps also the line judges to feel comfortable with their line call. And even if a player try or slide by you to influence them and you wouldn't notice, it helps keeping them on task anyway. So just by asking line calls when they're not calling, and it's showing them also at a lower level tournament, because at a high level tournament, those guys are pretty much on the ball. Although everybody does mistake or can't see. If you have a shuttle coming to you at 400 kilometers an hour, sideways and down the line, those of you who haven't been sitting in a chair and seeing that come toward the line and how quick those things happen, it's a different story, let me tell you. But establishing good relation with your line judge, I think, is key for any umpires.
Okay, please, Mohammed.
Yeah, just I want to follow up with Gerald, what he said. Actually, as umpires, our match started not on the courts. They should start before when we are out of the courts. We should start our match. And we try to make the line judges confident out of the court. We try to speak to them. We make good relationship with them. And once we are on the court, we should let them involve on the match. We should always look at them, shake their heads, and we should let them involve on the match. Don't forget them on the match. Yeah, this was my comment. Thank you.
Beth?
My comment was that two things. One is when I train line judges before a tournament, I always instruct them that your job is to watch that, to determine the shuttle landing on or in the court, period. You've got your line, use your line. And the only other thing that's on court that you have anything to do with is me, the referee. The umpire, excuse me. That it's the umpire and you, and nobody else on the court makes any difference to you. You don't look at the players, you don't look around. It's you, your line, and the umpire. And then as an umpire, going out, just as Gerald said, talk to them ahead of time. And especially if you have a sense that this young girl or young boy is, kind of a bit nervous about a situation, I reiterate that don't look at anything, nothing matters, your line and me.
Sure.
Okay, all right, so Ricardo, I will say thanks for this opportunity. It's been a pleasure to be able to, have some discussions here with our fellow heroes from the Pan Am region. I strongly support the initiative of Pan Am of trying to get us all together during these challenging times, whether it's COVID, whether it's the situations in the US. So get together, share information. As you can see, none of us has all of the information, and we actually continue to learn. I'm learning daily from my interaction with you guys, and just keep on your quest for knowledge. As Ricardo says, get out there, be active. I'm sure that you have some buddies that you might be able to continue to bounce your questions off of. I'm sure that Sandip will continue to talk to Gerald even when we finish it. So it's been a pleasure, and I am very grateful for the opportunity on behalf of Pan Am to be here to share with you. So I will say good night and get home safely, and see you in the same place, same time when we get together again. And Gerald, thanks very much for your assistance here.
But everybody take care. Pleasure being here. I hope I can join you again in other questions sessions like this.
Thanks to everyone. Ricardo, thanks to you for the work putting together. Thanks,
Yes.
Kelvin. Thanks, Gerald, for your comments. Very helpful. I really enjoy being here with you and knowing a little more about these regulations and keeping an update on you. Welcome to all. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you very soon.
Thank you to all, and see you next June 17 in the next Talking About Rules.